Welcome back to This Day Live, the Sunday talk show here on the Arise News channel. With me now, I have Professor Kila, Professor of Strategy and Development and Institute Director at the Commonwealth Institute of Advanced and Professional Studies, as well as Dr. Nnaemeka Obiaraeri, a certified financial analyst and Group Executive Director at the Taurus Holdings Limited. Well, gentlemen, thank you for joining me on This Day Live this week. Well, we've discussed quite a number of subjects. One, the budget that the National Assembly passed yesterday with all the benchmarks. We had Kelvin Emmanuel looking at that. Capital importation at zero level in 27 states of the Federation, and the FCCPC slamming VAT, British American Tobacco Nigeria Limited, with a fine of $110 million. And VAT Nigeria Limited saying it has paid. And the allegation is that, well, FCCPC needs to hold all these companies accountable under the laws of Nigeria. Then we had the Catholic Bishop Emeritus of Abuja, John Cardinal Nnaemeka, who discussed the killings on the plateau, the state of insecurity in the country, the year 2023 in review, expectations for next year, and he said his person of the year is the Lord Jesus Christ. But I then asked him about gay marriages and what the Pope said in that regard, and he offered an explanation. Let me start with you, Dr. Obiaraeri, so that you reflect on some of the subjects, and then I'll come to you, Professor Kila.
Okay, let me address the issue of the budget. And Kevin actually did a good job in giving us a breakdown. 28.7 trillion, recorded expenditure of 8.7 trillion, of capital 9.9. I mean, there's something that got me worried. Education got less than 3%, 867 billion. Health got about 656 billion, which is less than 2.3%. But look at the National Assembly, look at the volume of money that they allocated to themselves. Breakdown shows over 350 billion. And the most ridiculous one was the one that they allocated 3 billion to buy books and 12 billion to do National Library. If you look at the population breakdown of Nigeria, it is so saddening. The population of Nigeria within the basic education level, UBE, 15, under 15, is about 91 million Nigerians, children. If you break down the whole allocation of education to them, it comes to about 9,000 naira per person, per child. But the National Assembly allocated for themselves library and library books, 31 million naira
books
per
that they will not read anyway.
National Assembly. You know, it's quite ridiculous. The National Assembly Hospital, 15 billion. Car park, 3 billion. For the Senate, 3 billion for house. In fact, there's another one, recreation center, 4 billion. Recreation of what? In this atmosphere in Nigeria, you know, and look at even the assumptions. Output of 1.78 million barrels a day, when we are currently grappling with 1.3 million barrels, and the OPEC quota is 1.5 million barrels a day. Look at the revenue, look at the debt services, look at the recurrent expenditure. The 8.3 trillion is actually the chop, I call it chop money for less than 1 million national political office holders and civil servants. Whereas the rest, 213 million Nigerians, nobody cares. You know, I feel so sorry for this country because one, you talked about the issue of also the foreign direct investment. I was discussing with Professor Kila. I'm not surprised that only 31 states did not attract $1. I will mention them. 27 could not attract $1. I was sharing with him my experience with one governor in Nigeria. We brought a group of, you know, we have over 17 million housing deficit in Nigeria that will require over about $500 billion to cover. A group was willing to do 2,000 housing units in tranches. They were willing to bring in $300 million into a state. The studies had been done. The monies were available. The off-takers were clearly identified as diasporans who were willing to stick in their money. But what studied was because this land use act that had been so much abused, those developers, they've had experience on that part of Nigeria, and they insisted that the communities whose land we are going to be taken to be given to a private developer must be appropriately compensated.
Which state is it?
I will mention them. This is confidential. But this is the truth. $300 million was spawned and rejected because the state was not ready to do what they are supposed to do. And so they are not looking at it. I'll give you an example. Congo Democratic Republic, Total Energy, in one of their climatic change pursuits, sponsored planting of 40 million trees in Congo Democratic Republic. We've made a case in the 19 northern states of Nigeria. Each state, if the likes of Total Energy, there's a lot of climatic funds that will support it. If they put in place the right structures, the right physical framework, and the security in place, the 19 northern states, if they decide to do just like what Kevin was sharing, clusters of 40 hectares of the date palm plantation. In fact, Saudi Arabia, over the last 15 years, they have developed 1 million hectares. Egypt is number one. Egypt is 95% desert, and they understood the importance of using the date plantation to curb desertification and to provide clusters for agro-pastoral scheme, where the nomadic herdsmen and the pastoralists will all come together under one atmosphere. We did a proposal. We did the number. And last time I came here, I shared with you. 2019, I was privileged to speak to the PDP Governors Forum, and I picked out some of the governors from the north, and I shared this idea. This investment will not take anything more than $2 billion to do. The funding agencies, a lot of Total Energy and most of other companies in the fossil fuel have funds that can support this. But the governors need to put in place the blueprint, the structures to attract this fund. And Dr. Bati, in over the next 5 years, this 19 northern states can easily generate over $12 billion from the debt value chain, creating 2 million jobs. And do you even know the interesting aspect of it? So what happened in Plateau State? The military man was saying they were having calls from 30 different directions. Very laughable. Security is indigenous. Under the arrangement that we shared with the northern governors, they will have 25 agro rangers in every of the 40 hectare clusters of the date palm plantation structure, with irrigation, with security and everything. In fact, overall, they will have over 25,000 agro rangers that is funded through a private-public partnership arrangement that does not require physical revenue coming out from the state. When you have such arrangement, what the military will only do is to coordinate them, train them, arm them, provide them. And when we have these coordinated rangers within these communities, these militias and bandits who are acting like ghosts cannot creep into the communities, burn down cities, burn down communities, and walk away. And the military will be complaining on how they've been receiving tacticals. Dr. Bati, the truth is, this country is a blessed country. And His Eminence, you saw the way he sounded. Nigerians are hurting. And these guys in the National Assembly in Abuja do not seem to understand that we are in a very dire situation. The insensitivity is so alarming. If you look at this budget screams insensitivity. And I tell you, it is a country so blessed that if these guys do not do the needful now, by 2024, things will become so terrible. We need to restructure Nigeria, and which is very, very key. We need to, if there is any assignment Tinubu as president and National Assembly should embark upon now, is to make sure this country is restructured back to our 1960 constitutional framework, so that we can have a nation of productivity and not consumers.
Professor Kila?
Well, I think, the items we've discussed, we start from the budget. Somebody needs to tell them that budget is not inspiring. It lacks 5 things, which is crucial for a moment like this. One, a good budget has to be proactive, it has to be sensible, it has to be sensitive, and it has to show accountability, and it has to be inclusive. This budget lacks, I'm a student of political economy, we know what I'm talking about. This budget lacks those 5 fundamental things for budget writing in terms of crisis. It doesn't seem to show that thing. And it's a shame, because it is difficult to justify why in a country like this, with the level of illiteracy and the population of young people, why the budget for education will be just about 2%. That does not speak very well. So when the National Assembly people devote billions for them to read books, but I think, let me ask them today that they should list every book they write and write a review on every book they are going to read, because that would be some kind of assignment for them, and maybe they can get Dr. Ruben Abati to compile, the reviews of the essays written by National Assembly on every book they've written. Because now, it is important because it's not just about them reading. They're using Nigeria's money to read. So let us know what they're, what they're reading. I think that would be a good way to justify it, to start with. On what's the other thing we discussed? We talk about the budget, then
Capital importation.
we talk about the capital importation. That is a disaster. But the good thing about it is there's actually a solution. So, I mean, I say this, it sounds like self-promotion. There's actually a seminar we do at CIAPS about capital importation for subnationals. Other countries in the world take advantage of it. I think, given this kind of figures, the rational thing to do is for the governors to sit around, look at themselves and say, listen, this is not working. What can we do to attract capital? And I think there's no problem that is unsolvable once people are alive and willing to do it. But we need to look at that as a people to say, what can we do to attract capital? Then come up with a plan. His Eminence has explained very well the position of the church, be it the global church from the Vatican to the Nigerian church on the same-sex marriage matter. I like when he said that those who are real Catholics will not need to bother about this, if you understand it. And I think he's on kind of unnecessary hysteria that he says, it's the media that got it wrong. Well, the media got it wrong, but people are not daft either. I think they just decide to do so. This kind of hysteria on a very minute matter like this, it's a kind of oppression of minority because the Christians in the world are not scandalized by adultery, they're not scandalized by corruption, they are scandalized by something that does not exist really in Nigeria. That is something that we all need to be called out for. His Eminence did not go into the person and personality of the year. Very wise was him to do. I mean, he chose Jesus Christ, I think that's an evergreen song to play. So it is good to go along that line. But I think, if we really want to do it, there's no doubt that the person of the year, but before I go to say my person and personality of the year, I think it's important. I like what he has done. You see, parents and people, please read. When educated people talk, you see the advantage. You can see His Eminence that he's a man of wit and depth. You can see he's a reader. I don't know how much he has spent on his books, like National Assembly, but definitely you can see the thoroughness in his thought and everything, even though when passionate. So he reminded something because Forbes is money. When Times do Person of the Year, people get carried away. The Person of the Year does not really mean, achievement or goodness. It just means the most impactful, most discussed. So I would be willing to open myself to say the Person of the Year in 2023 is definitely Bola Ahmed Tinubu because, it was the one who, against all odds, against everything, did the impossible. They had all kind of scandals thrown at him. He won it one way or the other. At one point, even his own leader of his own party was not really with him. He wasn't care. At some point, he became, his party became opposition and government. Because I remember when PDP was God knows where, all of a sudden, and that makes him the Person of the Year. I think we must also look at the revelation of the year. I am doubting to see whether it Peter Obi or the obedience themselves. I think I'll give it to obedience more than Peter Obi himself, as the real force, the innovative force of the year. Event of the year is obviously the election, but I think the Dangote refinery is something that needs to be mentioned as one of the events of the year, so that it's not just all political to that extent. We can also add the love letter written by Reuben Abati as one of the things that made, highlights of the year, because I think that went viral as well. So those are issues that you don't want to miss, as it were.
Well, very briefly, before we move on to the next topic, Dr. Obiaraeri, your Person of the Year.
Victor Osimhen and the assistant Victor
Osimhen
and the assistant Oshoala.
Yeah. Okay.
For a long time, 18 years, we've not produced African Footballer of the Year. Victor did us proud. He is my man of the year.
Fair enough. Let's go to Ondo State. Former Ondo State Deputy Governor Lucky Aiyedatiwa was this past Wednesday sworn in as the substantive governor, less than 24 hours after the death of Governor Rotimi Akeredolu. In a related development, a former Speaker of the House of Representatives, Gali Naaba, died last week in Abuja at the age of 65. An aide to the former Speaker, Ahmed Lawa, broke the news to newsmen last Wednesday in Kano. He said that Nnaemeka died at the National Hospital, Abuja. The former speaker emerged as the People's Democratic Party's House of Representatives candidate in the 1999 National Assembly election for Kano Municipal Federal Constituency in Kano State. Well, 2 deaths, different circumstances in the past week. The governor of Ondo State, Rotimi Akeredolu, and the emergence of Lucky Adetua as governor now, substantive governor. And then the death of Magali Nnaemeka, fourth Speaker of the House of Representatives of Nigeria. Let me start with you, Professor Kila.
Well, I think it makes everybody reflect, especially, when you look at the age of people dying and you think of your own age, at some point you realize that this thing is, it's true. And I think during the week, my essay published on this day was actually a reflection on musings on death. And the cue was on the death of these 2 people and some other personal ones. I think the death of these people shows us that we need to be conscious that death is a certain thing in our life, and it's good to lead a life that would take account of the fact that one day one is going to die. And I think if we do that, it will improve our life and the rest of other people. The position of the person and personality of the now late Rotimi Akeredolu is a rather painful and complex one, because he started a very good life, led a good life, magnificent person and personality, but it is not we're used to respect the dead, but I think we should give more respect to the truth. Ideas say his last days were not great, because for some reasons, which were not clear, we talk of cabals, we don't know how much he was involved in it, his last days were not magnificent. His last days were a contravention to everything he stood for in life, which is democracy, institution, truth, courage, and process. And I think the way he was handled. There's also a problem with Rotimi Akeredolu's death, which is something that really bothers me. When a country where we cannot get simple facts right, where did he die? There was news he was Germany, then he became Nigeria. Those things are not tidy. I think we all need to respect truth and then institution above all. And this is where we are. The death of people we know, public figures that we all know, and private, the ones that we don't all know, but we all know privately. I want all viewers to know that it reminds us that this death is a certainty, and we should live our life knowing that death will come one day.
And it will. Well, Dr. Obiaraeri.
Rotimi Akeredolu, rest in peace. I remembered him as a great president for the NBA. He did so well. And Galina Abba gave independence to the National Assembly, unlike the rubber stamps we have now. Naba was truly independent. His time in National Assembly was one where the National Assembly provided checks and balances. Of course, Obasanjo is an alpha male, and Galina Abba was able to checkmate his excesses, unlike the people we have now, who just sign whatever that is given to them. So, and their demise is also a reminder to every one of us that life is just ephemeral. We are just transitory, transiting across this space called planet Earth. People must remember there's always a day one must go to meet his maker, because each and every one of us must die. We are not going to live like Enoch or like Methuselah. Certainly, highest you will stay here is 100 years. So make sure you live your life well. Use your positions or whatever God has given to you to serve humanity and God. In fact, you serve humanity because you don't see God who is invisible. You only serve God through serving humanity.
Okay, let's go to Senegal. Senegalese authorities have banned a nomination meeting for jailed opposition leader Ousmane Sonko to run in the 2024 presidential election. A local official confirmed on Friday. The 49-year-old has been at the center of a standoff with the state that has lasted more than 2 years and sparked several episodes of deadly unrest. Sonko has submitted his candidacy with the Constitutional Council to contest the February election in 2024, despite the state's refusal to provide them with the necessary documents. Authorities said Saturday's meeting was banned due to threats of disturbance to public order, hindrance to the free movement of people and goods, and risk of infiltration by ill-intentioned people, according to a decree seen by the AFP. It was signed by Dakar Prefect Sheriff Mohamedou Blondin Ndiaye who confirmed its authenticity. Well, Usman Sonko has been accused of all kinds of things, from libel to rape, to promoting immoral conduct among minors, to getting involved in insurrection. But it looks like his main offense is that he stopped Macky Sall from running for a third term, even if President Macky Sall said, oh, he doesn't want to run for a third term. But he was forced to take that position after there were many protests on the streets of Senegal. And now, since July, Usman Sonko, leader of the PASTEF party, has been in detention. He was jailed 2 years for promoting immoral conduct among minors. But from prison, his lawyers decided that they will still file papers for him to take part in that February 2024 general elections. What does it say about African leaders? Familiar?
Dr. Bati, it's very familiar. If we want to run democracy in Africa, we must make it work. You know, this idea of sit tight, like the other day, back home, saw 21 governors coming all the way from their state. Even the Plateau State governor, leaving his state that was bleeding to come to Lagos State to come and pay homage. I cannot recall ever seeing any of the 50 governors of the 50 states of America going to visit Trump in Mar-a-Lago or going to visit Joe Biden. You know, if we want to do this democracy, we must do it the way, because democracy is not something we borrowed. And if we must do it, we must do it. Just look at what's happening in Senegal. It is something all over Africa, from Uganda to Cameroon, next door neighbor, even to, you know, we must understand that political office is a call to serve. And when you've been called to serve, you are not an emperor, you're not a lord, you are a servant. First among equals, and you should serve in such direction.
Professor Kila?
Well, I think you say familiar is the right word, and I want those who have participated or who have read Nigeria history to look at those reasons for which the meeting was banned, and it will remind many people of the reasons why meetings were banned in Nigeria under the military and under some kind of governors across the country. The language is the same, and it's a shame. Dr. Obiaraeri is right. We need to look at democracy and see if we want to practice it. I think the first step we need to really realize is that democracy, and this is not something offensive, it's just a matter of fact. If we want to get it right, we have to start from reality. Reality is that democracy is alien to us as a people. We're not natural democrats. We're not cultural democrats. You know, we come from a culture of deference to age, to power, to money, to some spiritual things. We're not true equals, let alone first among equals. It would be natural in the Yoruba society, for example, for minor obas to go and pay homage to the grand oba. You know, and then I think that is what they've come to do to the president. You know, these are the minor rulers who've gone to pray to the grand ruler. I don't know why they wouldn't have done it at Abuja. The other thing that fascinates me is that Tinubu himself is not a Christian. His name is Ahmed. So I don't know why Christmas became a major thing for him either. But, you know, those are the things we have to deal with. I think with information, with this general consciousness, Africa has to review democracy, understand it better, then decide to practice it, to know what it's about.
Okay. Well, what is clear is that in Senegal, the people want change.
Yes.
As of the deadline of December 26, 79 persons filed their candidacy to participate in the February 2024
which is the first time in history.
General election. 79.
Yes.
So clearly the people want change. And there are many persons stepping forward. Let's take our final story. This is about Manchester United. I don't know who's a Manchester United fan here. I'm talking about British billionaire Sir Jim Ratcliffe, who has agreed to buy a 25% stake in Manchester United for about $1.3 billion. Ratcliffe's Ineos Group will take control of football operations. The 71-year-old will also provide $300 million for future investment into the club's Old Trafford Stadium. The announcement comes 13 months after the club's owners, the Glazer family, stated they were considering selling to explore strategic alternatives. The American family bought the club for £790 million in 2005. The only other publicly declared bidder, Qatari banker Sheikh Jassim bin Ahmad Al Thani, withdrew his offer to buy 100% of the club in October. United have struggled on the pitch this season and have not won the Premier League since 2013, while they have continual protests against the Glazer ownership. Well, let me start with you, Dr. Obiaraeri, for talking about Victor Osimhen and talking about Asisa football Shuala. Yes. I know those of you who follow sports. You also have your favorite clubs in the Premier League.
Man U is not my favorite club. And,
okay, maybe it's Luton.
They've been struggling over the last, how many years now? Over the last 10 years. You know, let's pray that the change of ownership will bring in the kind of thing that we are seeing in Man City, who has overtaken them. Manchester now the sky is now blue in Manchester. It used to be red. So let's see what Ratcliffe is bringing to the table. But for now, that's still strong.
Well, Professor Kila?
I think, well, the first thing that needs to be said is, because I remember clearly, in terms of the financial bit in particular, that when Glazer people are going to take over this, and people said they won't last long. They've lasted longer than, than predicted. Even though they're going away, it must be said that they've lasted long. And it's a good thing that, money is coming into the club. And I don't think the ownership really decides, determine a lot what happens on the field. That's more about coach and footballers. Of course, you have to buy the right kind of players. So, well, we wish them well. That's a lot of money going in, and especially because of the infrastructure that we're going to Stratford. I want our viewers, both citizens and leadership, to look at how these things are done and to see that in everything, we're talking of generating revenue, creating infrastructure that will then build human capital. These are the kind of things that one needs to learn from. You ask which team people support. I am still in Nigeria. I still support superstars, even though they're not playing again. I remain
superstars.
Yes, they are Debagi babes.
That's stationary stars.
That's stationary stars. Well, supporters call them superstars.
Oh, okay.
It shows that you're not a fan of superstars.
Tilewa Adebayo, by the way, who is the chairman?
Who's the chairman? Yes,
he's my good friend.
I'm a member of the board of the team of superstars. So, we're happy to let people know that. But I think, besides from Manchester United, which is doing all this, I think there's a lesson for Nigerian leaders and citizens from this, that sports is not just entertainment, it's also business and it's growth. And I would like Nigerians to look at it closely and see what we can do with it. Yes.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Obiaraeri. Thank you very much, Professor Kila. At 6 p.m., it will be New Year in Bangkok, Thailand, in Jakarta, Indonesia, and in Perth, in Australia. And Arise News will be here to bring you those details throughout the day. And at 12 midnight, the Big Ben in London will chime to herald in the new year. And that will be the 100th year of the Big Ben. The Big Ben having heralded in the new year on December 31, 1923. So 100 years of the Big Ben. Well, you've been watching This Day Live, the Sunday talk show, here on Arise News. I'm Ruben Abati. For my entire team here in Lagos, it's bye for now, and thank you very much for watching, and Happy New Year to all our viewers.